Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, celebrity interviews, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
Welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. For our radio audience tuning in at WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com, we're glad that you all can be with us. Also, those joining us through iHeartRadio and Amazon Music, we're glad you all could be with us as well. We always love being able to spotlight individuals who are using their platform to not only to motivate and inspire, but also to share information that can benefit us all. So I'm very excited to welcome Kevin Donaldson to our broadcast today. He's not only as the co-host of the Suffering Podcast, but an individual to be able to use his own social media platform to be able to raise awareness for issues that are near and dear to him, but also to be able to encourage others as well. We're going to talk to Kevin not only about his journey, what it's been like for him to use the platforms available to us all, but also to see the impact that his voice has been able to have on the world around him. Kevin, thank you again for the time. Really do appreciate it.
Cyrus, thank you so much. It's an honor to be on your show today.
Pleasure's definitely all mine. I feel like the work that you do, Kevin, is something that we really try to not only to get our audience to be able to see what they can be able to achieve in their own lives, but also encouraging others around them. Let's just talk about this year, first of all. It's hard to believe we're in the last quarter of 2023. Talk to us about this year for you, Kevin. What has it been like for you to be able to see not only the response to the work that you do, but also the impact you've been able to make?
It's humbling, you know, when you put your life out there in public display for the world to see. There's always a little piece of you that thinks, how am I going to be received? Am I going to be judged harshly? You know, and I'm a member of my community. I'm a football coach. How are my parents going to see me? And I've broken it down to the most core essence of it is nobody in the world will ever be able to judge me as harshly as I've judged myself in the past. And if you can get over that and really let go of those vulnerabilities, that's when you start to connect to people. Because I was told a long time ago, you can impress people with your strengths, but you connect to them through your vulnerabilities.
Yeah, such a great thing. And I love the fact that you put it out there front and center, Kevin, literally for the world. If anyone's following you on social, they'll be able to find you, of course, on Instagram at a real Kevin Donaldson. We're going to remind them of that. But, I mean, some of the topics you discuss, again, are near and dear to me. Of course, things like suffering, things like mental health awareness, the importance of that. But also, of course, being able to be vulnerable. So I want to talk about that because you mentioned that word. You know, I think we have definitely seen I want to say an increase in it, especially among us guys, and being able to know it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be able to put ourselves out there, knowing that it's not just for us, but to help other people. Talk to us about what you've been able to get by doing that, because it's not always easy, but talk to us about the rewards you've been able to get, Kevin, from being vulnerable and sharing a bit of yourself with the world.
You connect to people on such a different level. You know, I don't know if have you ever heard of the Japanese art of kintsugi? So it's something that's really cool. When we were a little kid, we all broke something in our parents' house. You know, a little tchotchke on a wall that your mother held valuable. And what do you do as a little kid? You try to glue it back together and you try to hide it the best you can and hope that they won't ever see it. Right? Well, people do this too. You know, we all get broken down throughout our lives, and we try to hide those cracks. Kintsugi, what they do is they'll take broken pieces of pottery, broken pieces of glass, and they'll inlay the cracks with gold. So what they're actually doing is highlighting the cracks and really turning something into absolute beauty and a masterpiece. And if you go online, you can look up dozens and thousands of examples of this. So that's what I do. And because in my own life, I tried to hide my cracks over and over and over again. Here's the only problem. Let's say you were to break a glass and you try to put it back together so your wife, your partner, your husband, your mother, father won't see it. Eventually what's going to happen is somebody's going to put water in that glass and it's going to leak and it's going to spill out everywhere. So if you were to repair it in such a way that you know that it's repaired, it's going to be more solid, and people are going to gravitate towards those cracks first rather than trying to look at somebody who's trying to hide. I tried to do this in my own life all along. And after my shooting, after 2013, I did everything I could to hide those cracks. But guess what? Everybody saw them. Every single person in the world saw them. They just don't want to tell you, hey, that we can see this stuff. You're not hiding anything.
Yeah. And you mentioned even on your social, Kevin, about your shooting. Talk to us about the decade since then. What has that been like for you to see? Because for a lot of people, I mean, for you, that wasn't an ending of one part of your journey, but it really did begin a new chapter. What has that new chapter been like for you to see the way it's been able to come to you in the past decade?
So if you were to speak to me 8-9 years ago, I used to tell people I was a landscaper because I would retire from the police department at this point. And I used to tell people I was a landscaper because I inevitably didn't want anybody to ask me the surrounding. I didn't want to even talk about my shooting. But, the funny thing is you're always put in a position right where you're supposed to be. And although when I went through my shooting, I thought it was the worst thing in the world that could possibly happen, it put me right in a position where I was supposed to be. And through a lot of therapy and group therapy and reaching out to others, I found out that that's what really brought me joy and what really brought me a lot of fulfillment. The decade since my shooting has seen a guy who was absolutely broken and doing his best to try to hide his cracks from the world to now say, hey, look, these are my cracks. You can judge them if you want, but if you listen to me, I have found that by facing those things that I used to think were a deficiency in my personality and highlight them and show you that these things can be overcome, but you have to have the strength and resiliency in order to face them. I say, I've been saying this for a long time. It's my prairie fire analogy. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that one. My co-host, Mike, likes to make fun of me because I do talk about it a bit. Years ago, I read a book on how to survive worst-case scenarios, and one of those was a prairie fire. It was, I live in New Jersey. There's no prairies in New Jersey. But so when danger is coming at a human being, it's your intuition to run away from the danger, to try to protect yourself and preserve life. With prairie fire, if you do that, if you run away, this big wall of flame coming at you, it's going to catch up to you, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until it consumes you and you die. But if you run fire, that danger, that pain, you're going to get through the other side. Yeah, you're going to have some marks. You're going to have some scars. But your duration of your suffering and your pain is going to be that much shorter. And if you think about this in just something innocuous in life, like if you don't pay your credit card bill, is it going away? No, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until you can't pay it. And the same thing is with suffering, with pain, my pain. I had to face my pain after my shooting and really own it and sort of ingest it and then put it back out there for the world to see. Say, look, once I faced this stuff, I'm not going to say it wasn't the monster that I thought it was because it was pretty bad. It got really bad. But I was able to get through it once I just faced it and said, yeah, these are my cracks. So the decade after my shooting has seen a broken man rebuild himself and use what he thought was a deficiency as a strength. And that's really, I turned suffering into success. That's how I like to phrase it.
Exactly. And Kevin, that is one of the things when I first found out about you that I really responded to because one thing that you have dealt with, of course, is, the depths of despair, with suicide attempts. I myself am a suicide attempt survivor. And I think a lot of times when I look at that journey for myself over the past 25 years since the last time I tried to end my life, I think about the purpose that I found and how excited I have been now to be able to take my own pain and suffering and to be able to help other people to deal with theirs. You've been able to do that too, and one of the ways you've done it is through something I mentioned, which is the Suffering Podcast. Talk to us about that platform, Kevin, and what that's been like for you to use that to not only to talk about topics like we're doing here, but also to share a bit of your story too.
So my co-host, Mike Fillais, he was a police officer as well. We used to go to group therapy because we didn't feel normal around anybody else. We thought we were the only ones going through this. We were the weakest individuals in the world. But when we got around each other, we felt normal because we all had the same damage and the same dents. And then, I would stay in group therapy and help other officers through, especially after I retired, because I felt that I owed. I had to pay this debt forward because there were some people who helped me along. And then, lockdown happens and no group therapies, no face-to-face interactions. And one day I'm sitting around and I go, I need this. I need this for my soul because service to another person really does cleanse your soul. And I just started playing around, hey, listen, I'd like to do a podcast. And that podcast has made me realize that the true beauty of my life is not my accomplishments. I have lots of saves. I have life-saving awards, Valor Awards, all this stuff. And that's great, and that's wonderful, and I'm very proud of it. But what really makes my life worthwhile is my own suffering and how I overcame it, how I overcame that adversity, and I turned it into something beautiful. I turned it into a piece of kintsugi art. And so we get on the air, and that same joy I had in helping another in a group therapy situation is the same joy. By the time my guests come out, we've heard it over and over again. They'll drive home and they say, that was one of the most peaceful drive homes that I ever had. And we've heard this. It's common. It's a commonality amongst all the guests. And we have some people in there with some real tough stories. It's the release. It's the talking it out in a conversational way. And sometimes we throw in some inappropriate humor that sort of disarms them a little bit. But they found the same peace I found.
Love that. And you have been able to make this something that people can feel comfortable about, Kevin, which is such a big deal. I want to get into more about that, and I should mention, because it is National Book Month, Kevin also has a book coming out next year. We're going to definitely talk to him about that. But for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome Kevin Donaldson to our broadcast today. He's an individual who's been able to use his platform as a motivational speaker, but also as the co-host of the podcast, the Suffering Podcast. We'll let you guys know how to stay connected with Kevin and all the great things he's doing. Kevin, I love the fact that, again, because it is such a big thing, there's so many people who are going through right now, and people will look at you and not realize what you've gone through. I know I've heard that to myself as well in the past. I think it goes to a big point that you've been talking about in this conversation that you also talk about on your podcast, and that is that there is no one look, right? There's no one way that a person gets to where they might end up in despair, right? And I say that to say about the fact that you've been able to really show people they're not alone. How important has that been for you to know, Kevin, in your journey, that regardless of what you've gone through, no matter what has happened to you, that you're not alone and you don't have to go through it alone?
It's essential. It's essential. When you're left out on a desert island all alone, you feel helpless, hopeless, no resources around. It's one of the biggest lies that we tell ourselves, that nobody can understand what we're going through. That is the most untrue statement in the world. You know, my podcast partner, Mike, okay, so when we're having a bad day, because let me make this very clear for everybody. Anybody who advocates for anything in life, not just mental health, don't make the mistake of thinking they have it all together. I have my bad days.
Yeah.
I have my hard days. I have my hard weeks, my hard months. But I have somebody to lean on, to somebody who I can totally trust, who I can be open and vulnerable with. Another man, and I'm 6'4". I played college football. I'm not the type of person that most people think of that's going to let go of their stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'm at the point right now where this is an essential thing, because you know, we're all given a glass in our lives, and that's how much suffering and how much pain we can take. If you don't empty that glass from time to time, it's going to spill over. And mine did spill over, obviously. But I have those people around me who I can lean on, and they can carry me through when I can't carry myself. And I now have 150 some odd people who can lean on me as much as sometimes I need to lean on them. I have this community of people, and the followers we have who are so supportive of us. It's everything to me, and it's what gives me my true purpose in life. I used to think being a police officer was my purpose in life. No, going out and highlighting these cracks, that's my purpose.
Isn't it interesting, Kevin, to that point that sometimes, you know, what we are meant to do comes to us in unexpected ways, right? Because, like you said, for our audience out there, they may have thought a certain career was that thing, and then when that's taken away from them, they realize what their real purpose and, you know, and even their own passion is. Is that one of the things you've been able to share with people, that a lot of times the thing that you think is the thing may actually be leading you in the direction of the thing?
I'm a huge believer, through faith and through some other very important people in my life, that there are no chance meetings. There are no mistakes. There is a plan. You have to there's somebody who's directing the plan that's very high up on the battlefield, and they can see the whole battlefield, but meanwhile you're mired in the battle itself, and you can't see the bigger picture until you come out of that little valley or that little skirmish that you're in. And then all of a sudden, you just have that aha moment where, oh, this was the plan all along. Everything else I was doing was to get me to here. You're always put in a position where you're supposed to be, even though it may really stink sometimes. But don't ever discount position you're in today as, oh, I'm the most unluckiest person in the world. I just got, I got bad break. No, there's a reason why you're going through whatever you're going through.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing. I mentioned as I was prepping for this segment, I saw on your website, we're going to be giving that out here in a bit, Kevin, that one of the things you have coming up is not only, of course, the continuation of the podcast, the Suffering Podcast, but also you have a book as well. Talk to us about that project, and because I know you've probably been asked in the past, hey, do you have a book, or when's the book coming? So talk to us about Man, You Are Crazy.
So it's an amazing team of people, and you want to talk about some chance encounters. I got connected with this woman, Julie Loken, who owns a publishing house, Mediacasters, and she connected me with another gentleman, Detective Chris Anderson, who you've seen on TV. He's been on First 48, and he's been on Reasonable Doubt. He was a Birmingham, Alabama homicide detective. And although we're from these two different worlds, there's so many commonalities about our daily lives that have happened through the damages of police work, because you're seeing things you're not supposed to see. So this book, Man, You Are Crazy, because at some point in your professional career as a police officer and many other professions as well, you're going to think you're crazy, and you're going to think that, because in essence, a crazy person thinks that nobody else thinks like them. Well, that's, again, big lie. You're not crazy. So what I've done is tried to rebrand the word crazy. And I am crazy. I'm crazy for wanting to go help people. I'm crazy for wanting to get involved in this life of service. And Chris, he's become a very dear friend of mine. It's a passion project more than anything else, but it's also letting people know into the window, a little bit of a window into the mind of a police officer, how strong they have to be. And a lot of people don't understand. So this book is not only for police officers, it's for their families, for their acquaintances. And when they read this book, my hope is they read it and go, oh, that's why they were acting like that. That's why they were shut off at this point, to give people a little bit of a window into them. We have some wonderful doctors working on it that are doing some stuff, giving some commentary in there. And I couldn't be more proud of the team that's been put together with Man, You're Crazy.
Awesome. A lot of great things for us to look forward to. Last thing I definitely want to talk to you about, Kevin, because I think it's important as our audience, as I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, it's hard to believe we're in the last quarter of 2023. This has been a difficult year for a lot of people. The world is definitely in turmoil. There's a lot of things that's going on. And it's so easy for us to let our own inner peace be disrupted because of external forces that are going on around us. What do you normally say to people, Kevin, who may feel as though they don't see the way out? I mean, you've been there. I know what that feels like. But what do you say to them about the importance of not giving up on themselves?
Because there's no way out. There's no way around. You have to go through. You absolutely 100% have to go through. There's no shortcut. There's no quick fix. It's kind of like taking that diet pill and losing all the weight all at once. Well, most people gain it all back because they never had to work and suffer through that. You have to go through this suffering because at the end of the day, it's going to make you a better person. Don't get mired and don't get weighed down thinking now is forever.
Such a great reminder for all of us. Again, everyone, Kevin Donaldson has been our guest. Great conversation with you, Kevin. He's the host of the Suffering Podcast, but also one of the co-authors of the upcoming book, Man, You Are Crazy, along with a lot of other projects as well. Kevin, I appreciate you stopping by Conversations Live today. How can our audience stay connected with you?
Well, you can always find everything through realkevindonaldson.com. You can find me on Instagram at realkevindonaldson. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all under the same names. You can follow The Suffering Podcast on Instagram at The Suffering Podcast, or go to thesufferingpodcast.com. We're on YouTube, all major podcast platforms. If you just go to YouTube and search the Suffering Podcast, will be the first one coming up. But I really do appreciate your time, Cyrus, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah, look, the pleasure's definitely all mine. Looking forward to staying connected with you, Kevin.
I think big things are happening in the future. Thank you so much.
All right. Same here. And we thank you, our audience, for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. Now let's go make today amazing. Take care.